Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again. Thank you very much as always for taking the time to tune in today. And today I'm delighted to be joined by certified pathfinding coach Hillary Spiritos, who is here to discuss the work that she does with young adults to help them improve their chances of life and career success. And success means different things to different people, and that's something that we are probably going to talk about as we go forward. Hilary is the founder of Bat Outta Hell, who are dedicated to helping young adults pursue the lives they envision by building self-trust and discovering their potential. She conducts workshops on essential life skills such as leadership development, interviewing, resilience, and maximising your study abroad experience. Through her coaching, Hilary empowers young adults to navigate social media noise and societal pressures, encouraging them to listen to their inner voice and achieve their unique personal and professional goals. This process helps clients identify their values, overcome obstacles, and embrace their fears, ultimately leading to a fulfilling and more authentic life. Using her unique experience, Hilary offers her clients that unique in-between space to create and execute their life roadmap. When we chatted before, Hilary had offered up a near peer as what she calls as the in-between space of where she's at right now, and I want to talk a wee bit more about that because I love that terminology. And using that near-peer experience, Hilary brings years of experience as an academic advisor at NYU and Northeastern University, as well as a background in the corporate sector, both as an employee and as a freelancer. Very, very impressive, Hilary. Thank you very, very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and speak to you.
I'm delighted to have you. So let's start with your journey thus far. Specifically, what sparked your passion? Like what experiences you had that sparked your passion for helping people of graduate ages navigate the complexities of their lives at that specific moment?
Absolutely. So I think ever since I was a young person, I have always known that I wanted to be this type of person for other people. I remember I have always loved inspirational sports movies, and I remember telling my mom that I wanted to be the coach. And so I really just have always known that I wanted to be there for other people.
Yeah.
I think that also as a young person, well, maybe not as a child, but when I was probably a young adult going through high school and college, I spent a lot of my time looking into the eyes of other people, trying to be the person they wanted me to be and trying to do or say or behave in whatever way that would make me successful to them or make me good enough. And I really veered off my path, and I really didn't engage with what I wanted and who I really was. And so it took me a long time to kind of get back to that. And so I wanted to kind of move those two things together and really help other people guide themselves on their journey and help them figure out who they are, what they wanted, what they're passionate about, what they're interested in from as a young adult so that they can move through the rest of their life in living that life rather than kind of looking back when they're 50 or 60 or whatever, realizing that they were living someone else's life. Because that's, our worst nightmare.
Yeah. Was there a specific moment where you realised that you were out of sync with who Hilary is and what Hilary wants? Was there that one moment, or was it an accumulation of different experiences?
It really was an accumulation of different experiences, but it was also, one moment really does come to mind, and it's it might seem innocuous, but it really was just demonstrative of a bigger experience. So when I graduated college and moved into my first apartment, I couldn't figure out what I wanted it to look like and how I wanted to decorate it. And I just had it's just like a breakdown because I had no idea what my aesthetic was, and I had no idea what I wanted my life to look like. And it was just an example of how I didn't know that answer in any way. And I had kind of gotten a little bit more clear as college went on, but it just entering the world, especially we go through life kind of all on the same pace, doing the same things at the same time for a long time. And then college is kind of the first time that we can kind of break free of those tracks. And then when you graduate college, you do so even more. And it can be a really challenging experience. It can be really exciting. It can be anxiety provoking. It could be thrilling. It's all of that. But yeah, I had a little bit of a wake up call when I realized that I didn't know who Hilary was. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of, it was unfortunate. It was not a great experience, but in fact, that was the impetus to kind of develop who I was.
Yeah, yeah. With challenge comes growth, of course,
Exactly.
and sometimes the challenge is quite unwelcome, and it's not exactly what was on the cards, or certainly not in the playbook we were hoping for. But
Exactly.
if you embrace it with an opportunity to say something will come out of this at the other side, and there will be some level of newfound knowledge that I didn't have before, then that's what I try and teach basically anyone that will take the time to listen to me, quite honestly, about that. So in terms of how does that then manufacture itself, or manifest itself is probably a better word to use, in terms of your current career, and what does that look like, and on a, if I could say, maybe a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So the work really began really when I was at Duke University in undergrad, and I was an RA, and I really loved working with these young adults and helping them figure out who they are, what they wanted, what they're passionate about, what they're capable of.
Yeah.
And then when I was an academic advisor at NYU and Northeastern, I realized that young adults were really looking for someone who was not parents, friends, or a therapist, because parents, as well-meaning as they hopefully are can't relate to the world of today necessarily. Friends, as well-meaning as they hopefully are, aren't objective, and they're not you. And you might not need a therapist. You may not have a mental health condition that needs to be diagnosed. So what I realized was that young adults were really looking for an objective near peer that they could speak to and that they could bounce ideas off of, and has been through what they're going through and who can help them navigate their journey. And so during the pandemic, I opened up Bat Outta Hell because I had past advisees, current students, friends, people asking to talk to me, and I realized there was this gap for this in-between space.
Yeah.
Um, and so my day to day is really just meeting with clients and meeting them exactly where they're at and helping them figure out taking the next step. And what I think is interesting about the work that I do and the way that I conduct my work is that I think that it's not possible to create the life you want to live and imagine the life you want to create without engaging in your inner child and understanding the relationship of your inner child and how it relates to yourself today, and how the fears, anxieties, and experiences that you had as a young person influence and impact and manifest in your adult life. So I think we often go backwards in the work that I do. We look back to make the most of like your life today.
Yeah, and it's so impactful. I do love the near peer. I mentioned that in the bio at the beginning, and I think that is important in terms of, you are an influencing figure, but you're not the type and style of influencing figures. If you take away peer groups, that they've probably been used to. I remember a number of years back, I used to volunteer at the local young offender centre, basically the jail for kids, and that was essentially my role. It was to be an adult, but a non-official adult. I wasn't a cop or a parole officer or a prison guard or a social worker or a counsellor or anything. I was there to just chat about what they wanted to chat about and play some cards or play some games, and just give them a positive adult influential experience going forward. So rewarding at that time. So I really resonate with what you're saying. My role was slightly different to that in terms of it
Sure.
didn't matter my age or my demographic. It wasn't taken any more or less seriously. But I do love the intentionality of saying I was there not long ago, So I'm just a wee bit ahead of you. No, I'm not like, well, in 1984 when I was in your exact position. It's nothing like that. It's a case of saying I'm living in the same paradigm as you're living in. I'm living in the same technology era that you're living in, and I have recent experiences that I can use as some sort of positive catalyst for a conversation at the very least. And I think it's something that, even with an academic supervisor or a career counselor or something like that, it's almost that, but it's more intentional. And I think I love the intentionality part of that. And how much success have you seen with your clients in terms of providing that service for them as they navigate that very difficult kind of shoulder season of their life almost?
Yeah, I think quite a bit, actually, a lot. I mean, I think that it really helps people realize that they're not alone. They're not, I think a lot of something that I hear very often from clients is that they're behind in that everybody knows what they're doing and they don't. And like everybody else knows what they're doing. And I think talking with me really helps them understand that that's not the case, that we're all trying to figure this out as we go along. And there's no such thing as having it figured out, whatever it is. And so I think one of the things that I do with my clients is really unpacking these stories that we tell ourselves that can really block our progress and block our imagination and block our ability to create the life we want to live and living our fullest, fiercest, most authentic life. And so in working with me, we break through and overcome those challenges, look at growth as a learning opportunity and learning, look at challenge, as a growth and learning opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not to say, paths are winding. That's not to say that it's going to be never challenging again. But in working with me, my clients have the skills and tools that they can call upon and have the precedent that they can call upon, that they know that they can get through the challenges rather than kind of being brick walls that they can't overcome.
Yeah. And how I'm really interested in terms of their openness to asking for help. Is that a natural thing for that demographic for right now, or is it something that you have to ease into?
So one thing that I say across the board over and over and over again is that it varies from person to person. And what resonates, something that I say will resonate differently from person to person. And everybody is just coming at this work from a very different place. So some people know exactly what they want to pinpoint and discuss. And some people have kind of more ambiguous understanding of what they want to talk about. They just know something is blocking them. Some people are, first call, they're like spilling their guts talking about it all. And some people, it takes a bit longer to warm up. Some people are willing to ask for help, and some people it takes a lot longer. I think for the people it takes longer for, I think there just becomes a moment when they either are sick and tired of feeling the way that they feel and they want to talk to somebody about it, or they can see the road ahead if they keep doing what they're doing. And they know that that's not the end result that they want. So they know that they have to break that cycle, but don't know how. And I think asking for help is very challenging for this age group generally, because I think there's this feeling, you're constantly bombarded by social media where everyone's a millionaire by the time that they're 20 and they know exactly what they're doing and everyone's perfect and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it is in asking for help that the magic happens, because then you just kind of break free from those chains. And I mean, you can figure this out on your own. It just is going to take a lot longer.
Yeah.
And it's going to probably be a lot harder and maybe more challenging. And so having a guide and having a support system will make a huge amount of difference.
Absolutely. And I get so inspired hearing that, because it's the exact same type and style of journey, I was going to say customer client journey that you have, where everyone's different. They're coming at it from different angles. And my question around their ability to ask for help was, I wonder what new generations feel about asking for help. I would hope that they would be more open to it. Certainly when I was that age, I don't think I would have been, and
Mhm.
quite frankly, and not because of any societal pressures or social media influences, because that literally didn't exist at that particular time. It was just a case of you just roll up your sleeves and get on with it, and you'll figure it out. And the odd course correction will likely become, or come from an adult who says, right, enough, no more of that, move on from here. So it's one of these things. So I did mention briefly at the beginning in terms of success and what success means. And I know that can become a very thorny topic, and it's a very subjective word in and of itself. How do you deal with that? How do you prize that out of your clients as you're navigating the journey together?
Absolutely. So sometimes part of it is sometimes it comes up from just asking the question and we just start talking about what success means to the client. But sometimes it can come up in like little ways that the client isn't even aware of. So I was just speaking to a client who's trying to look for their next job and they're looking to switch industries. And we were talking about what their skill set was and what maybe industry that aligns with. And we were just talking about different possibilities. And they would say something like, oh, that's not good enough, or oh, that's not really what I'm looking for. And the question is why, right? What does good enough mean to whom? Why is that not what we're looking for? So sometimes we just have these stories in the back of our minds that we don't really know where they come from until we investigate, but they will impact how we view success, how we view failure, how we understand courage. And I think it is truly important to break that down and really unpack that and recognize what those definitions are for you. Because until you do that, that's another block that's going to stop you from living the life as you want to.
Definitely. Yeah, one thing I say certainly to the students that I teach at the university, but more so for anyone I'm interacting with, is the abundance of information that you have access to, that you either choose not to access. It's there, you have a conscious understanding and awareness that it's actually there, and you choose not to use it at this particular point in time for whatever reason, or it's subconsciously there because you just haven't scratched the surface, you haven't just poked around in that particular area. It's vast, the amount of information you have. So just to success or failure, things like that, topics like that. I was just teaching that very thing earlier today, just in terms of workplace challenges. And workplace challenges, it doesn't have to be a conflict between you and another person. There could be a challenge with the industry, with the geographic region, with systems that are prevalent within there. So there doesn't always have to be a completely negative connotation to challenges. But back to what we were saying earlier, challenges inherently come from growth if you're willing to embrace the challenge at the moment, understand your role in this particular challenge, understand the processes that are being followed, if it got resolved to a satisfactory conclusion or not, and how you felt, how you contributed to that through the entire journey. And it makes it sometimes, I believe, it makes it sometimes sound completely daunting and overwhelming. And I'm saying this would literally take you not even 5 minutes. If you just sat down and decided to write down those 3 or 4 or 5 things that I just said and constantly do that, you will see patterns, you will see themes, you will see information that you maybe weren't looking for. And it's all with the opportunity to give you a better place and space to grow within and be a better colleague, spouse, partner, community member, whatever that looks like. That abundance of information that everyone, it's not exclusive for anyone, that everyone has access to. That's my hope, that through very valuable coaching like you have, Hilary, that people can start to say, wait a minute, I have access to more than I think I do. And I'm not talking about a generative AI search or a Google search. the information's already there inside myself in terms of my experiences, in terms of my actions and reactions, in terms of the outputs, in terms of the relationship strength or not after various things. I could maybe start to use that to really round myself off and give myself the best opportunity to grow.
I think that's huge. And I think what I'm noticing in my clients is that so often we don't take the time to
Yeah,
mine into ourselves and our experiences, and we don't take the time to really value them. Like, I think one of the biggest things that will help you on your journey is precedent. So, realizing the times that you have gone out of your comfort zone and the times that you've tried something new and you've survived or you've thrived and really enjoyed it. And because no matter what in that experience, again, you've learned something about yourself.
yeah,
But I think so many of us and so many young people that I speak to kind of dismiss their experiences previously and say, that wasn't big enough, that wasn't good enough, that wasn't. And so there's just kind of this minimizing and this judgment of our lives that I think really hinders our growth and really hinders our ability to tolerate discomfort, tolerate standing alone, risk taking. And I think those are what we're speaking about just like putting yourself in these positions just as a opportunity to try something new and learn something about yourself. And that is success in itself.
yeah.
Um, Also, I think there's something about this information that we have. I think it's important to recognize that there's something in us that is stopping us from looking into it. So there's something in us, there's something inside you that is stopping you from taking that next step, from you can Google like how to take the next step in business or whatever, and there's something stopping you from taking those steps, and there's something stopping you from even Googling that. And I think that that is the question we want to answer. What is blocking you really?
Yeah. And just to take that to one degree of extension, if you haven't had the precedence in and of yourself, but you know someone that you have
Sure.
access to that has, that's one of the benefits of dealing with someone like yourself, a coach, similar to what I do, that we may have, or at least have access to someone who we can offer up to say, can I share an experience with a previous client? And there's always access to something that will be analogous for them to say, right, okay, one, I'm actually not as unique as I thought I was because I thought I was the only person ever to have experienced this challenge or hardship in some way. And two, the way that I'm going about it might not actually be the best way to go about it for me under these circumstances. I wonder who else has gone through that. And if you have such a rich network or at least access to it, you have that opportunity for people to share their knowledge, share their experience, almost like the inspiration that you got to go and choose this career path for you for right now, to saying, I don't want people to have the limitations that I believe that I had at the time. I'm going to do something proactive about this.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Incredible. So I mentioned earlier there in terms of the societal pressures, and you talked about social media. What's your opinion in terms of social media, and and the impact it has on the client base that you're serving currently?
Yeah. Social media is tricky. And I think, again, there are so many positives to social media. I think I'm not saying that it should be banished. But again, when you're scrolling through and you're looking at everyone else's perfect lives and get you just get competition and you feel like you are not living up to this. And so we want to, as best as we can, remember that that's probably not even someone's reality. That's probably someone's 20th take or something, or 20th photo. And you want to remind yourself that there's no such thing as perfect. And you also want to constantly like remember that someone else's life really has no bearing on your life whatsoever. So you just want to kind of remember, like, keep asking yourself, how much do you really want that to impact you? How much do you really want that to affect you? And I do think it's important to take breaks. I know that in this generation that is kind of born with the phone in their hands, I think it is seemingly more challenging for them to disengage.
Yeah.
But it is very important to keep reminding yourself and keep having this little voice in your head saying that it's not exactly, you're not seeing someone's actual reality. Um, and I think it's challenging, but it's important to kind of remove yourself from that every so
Yeah.
often.
How is that taken when it, I mean it's very easy to say, but when you're saying to someone, apply these your reality filters to what it is you're consuming. I'm very interested, exactly as you said, that they're literally brought up, almost literally brought up with a phone or a device of some description in their hand. So you're trying to almost rewire every single neuron in their brain.
Yeah, I think some of them, again, everyone's different. Some clients and some people are more receptive to that and than others. But I do think that people recognize that it isn't an enjoyable feeling and this isn't an enjoyable experience for the most part. And I mean, life in general is all about questioning the stories and rewiring those neural pathways. Nothing is going to have one time you say it to yourself and then you're finished, you're cured, or whatever that word is. So it's always going to be constant practice. And the question is, do you want to be the kind of person who sticks with something? Do you want to be the kind of person who chooses themselves and their mental health and their real life experience over someone else's? Do you want to be the kind of person who musters up the courage to move forward? It is really a question of how badly do you want this? Like, brick walls are there to show us how much we want something. Like, it's not easy. Life isn't easy, but it's the question of like making sure you are second guessing, like, oh, is that person's really life is really like that? Like, what does it matter to me? What bearing does that have on my life? Like, it's just reminding yourself to constantly like question these stories that we're telling ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Curiosity. I know it's an often overused word in terms of coaching, to be innately curious as you move forward, but to try and instill that in other people to say, just question it, not to the point of annoyance where you're constantly questioning absolutely every single thing and holding yourself back as a result, but having that curiosity to say, how true is that? How true is that literally? How true is that for me? What, as you mentioned earlier, what bearing does that actually have on my life? And I thought one of the really poignant things that you said there, Hilary, was the fact that the acknowledgement of, I actually don't feel that good. I do this so often, and the majority of the experiences I have are, and I'll just say some suggestions here: disappointment,
Yep.
dejection, disgust in and of myself, whatever that looks like. And like, who would literally in their right mind want to do that on a regular basis?
And it is addictive, right? So
Yeah.
it's maybe not even a choice at this point. It just reflects it. Like, but yeah, it doesn't. Everyone can recognize that it doesn't feel good. I
Yeah.
also think, I have seen that this group of young people have struggle with connection and contact that they cannot control. And so scrolling through social media or texting are ways that they can control communication. Whereas if you pick up a phone or talk to somebody face to face, you can't control that person's response. You can't control when you respond to them. And that can be really frightening for this group of people, this young adult cohort. So I think it's remembering to put the phone down and practice that. That I think is an important thing to notice about social media is that it stunts that ability to create human connection, which can thus increase the loneliness epidemic. And it can just have these continuous ripple effects that will cause you to have some real challenges.
Yeah. And then imagining that everyone in your peer group is literally living the exact same reality at the exact same time. I wonder if human connection just means something completely different in 20 years' time than it does right now, where a human connection, the absolute rarity is that you have an in-person interaction with someone and you think, wow, that was monumental. I haven't done that for years. And everything else is in some way separated. There's distance created through technology.
Totally. But similarly, as we were talking about how social media makes you feel, it is interesting how generally, usually you come out of person to person contact and you just like are on a high. You feel really
Yeah,
good. And that is just a really interesting thing to learn that you actually that creates endorphins. That makes you feel
yeah,
like you're accomplishing something. So
yeah.
that's just an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, in terms of the workshops and such that I mentioned during your bio, they cover a variety of different topics: leadership development, resilience, and such. How do you do bespoke workshops? How do you tailor them to suit the unique challenges that today's graduates would typically be facing?
I think yes, I do. I create workshops to depending on what the organization and the clientele are looking for and need. Um, Again, as a near peer, as a young adult in the world today, I am intricately aware of the possibilities, challenges, obstacles, thrills of the world of today. But I also really believe that this is a truly human, personalized, tailored work. So I don't like to make broad, generalized statements to when I'm doing a workshop. So while I do give tips and strategies and tricks, I do make sure that I provide time for people to self reflect and to think about who they really are and what they want and create their individual world and do their individual work because I again what resonates with someone isn't going to resonate with someone else. um, I also think one of my biggest things is helping people really value soft skills. And I really hate that term anyway, but I think that that's really what's going to help people stand out from the crowd in this like increasingly digital AI world where kind of you can spit numbers and whatever you want information into AI and it will generate it for you, but it's being adaptable, a team player, a problem solver, creative, like all of those, good communicator, as we talked about, all of these quote unquote soft skills are really what's going to really raise you above the rest of your peer group, if that's in an interview or what have you. Um, I also think like what's huge in it's always huge, but really important for this cohort of people is cultivating and how to present your narrative. And so a lot of people, as we talked about precedent, like don't really recognize what they've done and don't really recognize how to discuss that with an interviewer or with a friend or in an elevator pitch or whatever that might be. So it's really important to recognize how to present yourself in the way that you want to be seen and really hit the notes that you want people to remember. Um, this work is really just all about creating self-reliance and resilience and self-trust and the ability to tolerate discomfort and risk and standing alone and cultivating your own voice. And that is the work that I do with my clients. And that is what I try to instill in these workshops.
It sounds incredible. The word I was thinking of as you were explaining it there was experience.
Sure.
Everyone comes to it with different experience in terms of their life journey thus far, and then they're going to have a different type and style of experience within the material that you're presenting at the same time. And acknowledging that not every educator does that and certainly doesn't do it well. Acknowledging that I can give 30 people the exact same type and style of information in the exact same tone and the exact same, they've received it literally at the exact same minute, and there's going to be 30 different experiences that are occurring in that in terms of individual experiences, and then there might be some group experiences that are taking place at the same time. Again, not everyone can do that and can do that well. And I love what you said about giving them the time and space to be able to essentially say, what does this mean for you? What does
Yeah.
this mean for you in terms of how you've navigated life thus far, and what do you think it's going to mean between now and moving forward? What are you going to change? What are you going to modify? What are you going to add to? What are you going to take away from, and such? And that really, for me, Hillary, genuinely separates the good to the great educators and the great to the exceptional educators. And it sounds like you're in the exceptional bucket.
Thank you. Well, that's very kind of you. I do truly love this work, and I can like, I just really, I'm fed by it. So I think I work really hard to be very good at it. But I think something that you said really is exactly right. It's that this work is all about how your specific fears, insecurities, and anxieties interact with your specific circumstances.
Yeah.
So I can say all of this stuff, but you might not be experiencing that in your life. Like you might not even have those specific fears. You might not have that anxiety that manifests in that way. So it is all about framing it in the way that makes sense to you. I can tell you to make like these so and so changes, but if you're not actually someone who's going to make those changes, then like what I'm saying is just really for me. So that's helping no one. So it really is about creating a truly personalized, tailored work, because this is not about slotting people into my process.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing that really resonated earlier, I think probably more so from personal experience, quite honestly, when you were talking about people naturally or inherently, it's not a natural thing to do, I don't think, is naturally minimizing the value of their experiences to date and in some way using that as a shrinking mechanism. And I don't think anyone who knows me well would say that I've ever been a shrinker where I'm kind of like, oh, it's not that big a deal. I like to talk. I like to talk about what I'm doing and not in a boastful way or anything, but just from this has been fun. This has been exciting. I'd like to share this information with you. But deeper down inside, I have minimized a lot of things. And I think probably from as I say this out loud now, just self-therapy for a second, is that there probably was some element of comparison there to say, yeah, so what, I graduated. Everybody graduates, so then I got that job. Well, everybody can get that job if they really apply to it. And it's only through, the last 10 or so years that I've really started to embrace the uniqueness and the value and the impact that I have and want to have going forward, and saying, right, how do I manifest that? How do I actually cultivate that into something that's going to be meaningful for other people and genuinely a value add? So I say that as a recovering minimizer of my experience, and I think that's something I'm going to pay a lot more attention to as I go forward.
That's wonderful. I mean, I think it's something that I actually say to my clients well, it doesn't need to be a regular basis, but it does whenever I say it, whenever it comes up, is, do you think that everyone around you is doing this? Like, do you think that everyone around you is applying for this many jobs? Or do you think that everyone around you worked this hard in university or got this or did this or whatever? And generally their answer is yes.
Yeah.
Because in their idea, they're like, everyone does this. Everyone does this, and this is normal, and it's fine. I remember this is a weird reference, but I remember I was in uni in my freshman year writing class, and my professor said, who is the audience for the New York Times? And all of us said the general public. And she was like, that's absolutely not true. There's no way that the general public actually will understand the writing in the New York Times. And so we just have this understanding that everyone's at our level or above.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, comparison is not really what I'm trying to get at. It's just more of the understanding of celebrating who you are and what you bring. And that's about cultivating your own voice and recognizing your value and understanding how to talk about your path.
Yeah, definitely. I think back to pre-pandemic when I used to teach at the local university here, and it was on project management, leadership skills, communication, stakeholder engagement, things like that. And I would say a version of almost what you said there, where it would be a case of, you have already differentiated yourself with everyone else. You could have done this online if you wanted. Now, most of it, if not all of it, is online now. So there's no choice from a physical interaction perspective. But back in the day, which is only just 5 years ago, is, someone made a conscious choice to physically be present in the classroom. And I know that that's uncomfortable for some people in terms of showing up to somewhere you literally have no idea who's going to be there. You don't know who you're going to be sitting next to. You don't know what type and style of educational journey you're going to experience in that, it was typically 2-day classes in blocks. But it was always, and I genuinely meant it. It was not a thing that I was just saying. It was a case of, like, this is a big deal. You should be celebrated and congratulated for making the effort to make this choice and decide. Even if someone in your workplace said, you better go to this class, you better get better at this, or you're out the door, they were still there and they were still present and they were still doing the very best that they could. And that is a key moment of celebration, of self-celebration and self-congratulation, I think, as well.
It is huge to decide to opt in to your own life.
Yeah.
And it takes a huge amount of courage. It is very challenging because there are just constant challenges and obstacles, and there are people telling you what you should do and how you should live your life and how you should look and how you should behave and all these things. There's constant noise, and it is very hard to stand out from the crowd. It is very uncomfortable, all of this stuff. It is very, very impressive and very like enriching and very revitalizing, and to opt into your life and say, I'm not going to be on the sidelines anymore. Yeah. I'm going to, like, first string the real, whatever your name is, right? Yeah. Like, I'm going to opt in and buy in. And that is truly powerful and should be at every moment recognized by you. And even if nobody else recognizes it, right? It needs to be recognized by you.
Yeah, definitely. A phrase I use quite a lot is, you are the only version of you and you're the absolute best at being you. And people want that. People need that. Whether you think they're seeing it, whether you think they're believing it, whether you think they're actually buying it, they are. And it's. But if you're not, I'm not saying doing it for other people. Do it for yourself first and see where it goes. And I think you would be amazed about the potential rewards that can come from that, depending on what you mean by rewards as well, of course.
Exactly.
So this is, of course, the Best You interview series where I talk about things that people do that create or help create the best version of themselves. What's one particular thing that you employ, Hilary, that gives you the best opportunity to be the best version of you?
Wow. I think there's so many things. There are so many practices I've put into place to make myself feel my best and be at my best. I think one of the things I would say is that I just make sure to take time to answer whatever questions I have first, and I really just I take time in silence, and I don't ask anybody around me what it is. I just, like, really give myself the time and the space to think things through without as much judgment as I possibly can. I also journal. I think that's really helpful. And I also just have frequent dance parties that, like, help me get out of my body and get out of my head and into my body. And so that really helps me kind of release any judgment and stress and frustration that I might have, which I think just having that kind of change up is really beneficial. And you can't ever be angry or sad when you're dancing. But yeah, and I think that there are a lot of things that I do, but I think it's just really important to make sure you figure out what works for you and then keep on doing it.
Absolutely. Well said. So before I let you go, where can people find out more about Hilary, about Bat Outta Hell?
Absolutely. So, exciting. I'm taking on new clients for 2025. You can find more information about me and my business on batoutahell.net, and that's BATOUTTAHELL. My Instagram and TikTok handles are bat.outta_hell. And you can reach out to me on my website or send me an email at hilary@batoutahell.net, and we can set up a time to have, like, a call about just introducing myself, kind of a consultation call to see if our vibes match, and then we can move forward from there.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute joy. Your energy is off the charts, Hilary. I absolutely love it. I'm invigorated no end from our conversation today. Thank you very, very much again for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It was wonderful.
Hello again. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode, and I do hope that you found it valuable and gained some insights. I do have an ask for you. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would absolutely love it if you would connect with me on my socials, and that's at LinkedIn, Facebook and YouTube. Just search for my name and do whatever it is you need to do there to follow me and stay updated with all the latest content, tips and discussions. And for any more resources that you're looking for, feel free to visit my website, garygillen.com. And while you're there, you can book a free, no obligation 30-minute coaching call directly with me through the site. Whether you're looking to enhance your performance or tackle a new challenge, I'm absolutely here to help you succeed, and I would absolutely love to hear from you. Thanks very much again, and until next time, keep pushing towards your goals and getting better each and every day, my friend.